Hello, everybody, and welcome to Books in Hindsight. I am your host, author Matthew Heines. Today we have an incredible guest. His name is Drew Barton. He is the author of The Buyer's Guide to Websites. If you're an author or a small business person, or anybody trying to make money these days, you're going to want to stick around for this. So, let me just remind you to please sponsor this channel on patreon.com/Heinessight, or just go to Heinessight.com and pick up one of my great books. Okay, everybody, without further ado, let's go to the phones.
Always 2020. And we explore the great books, works, and ideas of the century. Now, here's your host, teacher, and author, Matthew Heines.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Books in Hindsight. I have Drew Barton. He is not only a best-selling author, he is, and I hope he corrects me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, he is the CEO of Southern Web. So, Drew, he's going to tell us a lot of interesting things today about being a small business person or conducting yourself on the web. So, welcome to the show, Drew Barton.
Thank you, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right, so Drew, let's start by just telling us the sordid story. Where are you from? How did you get into this business? And what inspired you to get into, I guess, the web design or the internet itself?
Sure. I think a lot of it started from 2001 to 2004. I was the webmaster at CNN.com. And a lot of people would say, you do CNN's website, would you do mine? And not being one who's very adept at saying no to things, I picked up a lot of freelance clients at the time. And in 2005, launched my own firm, Southern Web. And for the last 13 years, we've been helping clients around the nation build websites. Today, we have a team of maybe 10 or 12 people, and we support 650 different websites around the country.
Okay, you said CNN, like CNN, the cable news network?
Yep.
That's very impressive. Yeah. So, okay, so what is, before we start talking about the book, which is absolutely really interesting, and something, it's like the Bible you actually need to know or have today in your possession, because he really goes into a lot of, and we're going to talk about it, some of the legal issues and contracts, which is very interesting. But first of all, let's talk about where does Southern Web come from?
Well, Southern Web started in 2005. Just out of the growth of working with CNN and building all those freelance relationships.
Okay, well, what was the idea? What was the service that you were going to offer?
Website development.
Okay, and did you see? Was there a need that you saw? Did you see that there was that something wasn't being addressed? Did you see a niche in the market somewhere with that?
Yeah, I've always viewed websites in sort of different tiers. So you've got sort of the do-it-yourself tier. That's that lower tier. For someone who has some extra time on their hands, who's ready to devote to that. Then there's been a tier above that of sort of, I didn't want to do it myself, but I needed someone to help me. But there was a larger tier above that, which sort of is where you hire a highfalutin agency to build a big fancy website and that. But there was always a space that I saw between that DIY, do-it-yourself space, and before you were ready to commit to like one of the larger marketing agencies that's out there. And I sort of put our company right in that space because I could see there's an underserved market there. And in fact, today there still is an underserved market there because we've just found it's been a good place for us. It's hard to find people that actually know what they're talking about and are not trying to sell the same thing over and over and over again, and have built sort of a niche where they're sort of selling the same product in red, blue, or green.
Right. Okay, so let's just try to make a bridge here. So if you are not like a web hosting service, but if I have a web hosting service and I'm having problems with it, you're the guy that I want to go to. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So we do offer web hosting to our clients. That is an option for that. But we also have a division of our company called WP Site Care, where we actually take care of people's websites who are not hosted with us. And that's where we make sure that their WordPress sites are maintained, secure, backed up, and they have an expert in WordPress to help them through that, not just onboarding process, but also the continuous improvements to that. Because especially in the case of this open source software, whether you're using WordPress or Drupal or Joomla, there's continual updates that come from the parent company to literally millions of other websites, so that they're patched from hack attempts and denial of service attacks, all those types of things that can happen. Those patches need to be put in place, and that's where that company, that WP Site Care company, comes into play.
Okay, so just tell me then, Drew, at what point do I need to consult Southern Web? What point do I need you?
So we have several different divisions of the company. So one is the WP Site Care division, which helps people secure, maintain, and enhance their WordPress sites. Southern Web is essentially the parent company that helps clients build, design, and build their websites. On the other side of WP Site Care and Southern Web is our digital marketing piece, where we help clients with SEO, digital marketing, paid advertisements on Facebook, Google, and then there's a final piece that we also help people with their social media and their email marketing. So we have, essentially, if you looked at it as a table, we have four legs to the table that help your website stand strong.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's great. And what we're trying to do here, Drew, is we're just trying to establish your expertise and your credibility. So let's talk about the Buyer's Guide to Websites. And I just want people to know that it is available on Amazon.com or Amazon and at drewbarton.com. And Drew, you also have an audio book, which I would like to talk to you about in a little bit. And it was actually quite convenient because I got to listen to a little bit of it. And so I was very impressed when I saw that it's what the segment that I was listening to, I should say, I talked about your contract with your web host. And that's something that most people like myself think, well, I'm just one of the nameless victims of, the population that basically has to take whatever they give me. So I was very interested to hear about you talking about a contract. So can you talk about contracts and expectations with web hosts?
Absolutely. So you have different tiers of web hosting, just as you have different tiers of websites. And to a certain degree, web hosting has become a commodity. But there's also a level of web hosting called managed web hosting. So managed web hosting tends to cost a little bit more money, but you have someone who is essentially your champion, your advocate, who is making sure that everything is maintained on that web server for you. And there's a lower tier, and sometimes you can be, when you see $2, $3, $4 a month for hosting, that sounds like a great option. But a cheeseburger for $1 is also an option. It will get you fed, but it won't give you good nutrition. And so there are better options of posting. But let's talk about the contracts for a second, because there's one thing that you have to pay attention to with your web hosting, and one of them is the SLA, or service level agreement. The service level agreement it's the agreement between you, buyer, and them, seller, that says that we are going to uphold this certain level of service with you. And if we don't uphold that level of service, here's what you get in return. Now, within that, and what the lawyers put in there, is typically they'll put in a percentage in there, 99.999% uptime. Well, each one of those nines that's in there equates to about 4 hours. So if you're looking at 99.999, that's 4 nines, that means your website has the possibility of being down for 4 hours. Also, what the lawyers put in those SLAs is planned maintenance. So meaning if they give you an upfront notice that they're going to be taking your website offline for some time, that doesn't count towards those 4 hours. So that's part of it. If your website is also an e-commerce institution where you're doing all these, let's say you're selling widgets or tchotchkes or cupcakes, as I put as an example in the book, and you know that each hour you sell one order of cupcakes, which might be $25, $50 to your company, that you then can't go back and say to the company, well, we lost an hour of service, we lost 4 hours of service because of the downtime, and we typically do $25 of business in an hour, so you owe us $100. The SLA will spell all that out for you and be very clear on what those things are. The other part is a lot of these larger companies set what's called venue, which means where you would have to go back and take them to court if they lost your website, weren't able to restore it. And a lot of times they set venue in places where you can't. For example, one of the largest companies out there, their venue is set in Dubai. So if you wanted to fight them and try to sue them, you'd have to do it in a court in Dubai. The second largest one is in Israel. So if you wanted to fight in Israel, then you'd have to go and sue them there. And a lot of people don't think about that as they're looking at these $3, $4 a month hosting things. It sounds like a really good deal because of the price. But in actuality, if things got rough, things would get rough for you because you don't have standing with those companies.
Well, then we just go back to my initial statement of, yes, being I believe it was in the Christmas story, they said the nameless mob of victims or something like that. And that's what most of our expectations are. And I was just going to ask you, well, now, wait a minute, where does it say I have the right to redress anything for their downtime? And we're going to be talking about, we're going to give Drew a real life experience in a little bit. And we're going to be talking about that specifically. But where does it say all this stuff about if you have downtime, you're entitled to anything? Where's that?
Yeah, that's going to be at the bottom of their website. When you see legal at the bottom of the site, you're going to click on that, and then you're going to look for what's called the SLA, or Service Level Agreement. So the two abbreviations that you want to get out of today, one is SLA and the other one is SOW. Those are the two abbreviations that we use, and you'll want to be super clear as a bell before you engage either a web host or a web developer. SLA stands for Service Level Agreement. SOW stands for Statement of Work. And so whether you're getting your website built or you're getting your kitchen floor retiled, you want to have a statement of work. What is going to be done in exchange for your hard-earned dollars? With the other piece, the SLA, the Service Level Agreement, that is your standing, your total redress that you can do if something should happen that is bad with the website. You probably already have one with your internet carrier. So if you have Verizon, Comcast, Time Warner, whoever's delivering internet to your home has an SLA, meaning if your internet service in your home goes down, they're going to come out and send a truck to go fix it within 4 hours, let's say, or the next business day. That is the SLA that you're paying for as part of your monthly fee.
Okay. But then again, I'm skeptical, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. So tell me, Drew, what is the connection between the Buyer's Guide to Websites and Southern Web? Is there a connection? Is this like, you go through the book and then you go, oh boy, I need more help than I thought I did or something? What's the connection?
I wrote the book because so many people don't know what they don't know. And I put in real stories, and I changed the names of the people, the victims.
You can use my name in the future.
I've used those names in here to explain some of the horror stories that have happened when they didn't know what their SLA was, or they didn't have a clearly written SOW. So if the statement of work is :website, that's in no way clear enough, or even I'm going to get a 10-page website. Well, who knows what that means? And that's why a statement of work has to be spelled out to the nth degree. All too often, people are so excited as part of the process to get designing a website that they don't spend the time on the blueprints, on the planning phases. And I like when, if you're going to paint a room in your house, you're going to spend more time taping it off and putting down tarps than you do actually painting the room itself. Mm-hmm. Somehow when we build websites, we're so quick to jump into templates, design, and what we like looking at, then, oh my gosh, what is going to be on this page? What's going to be the call to action? What are our color schemes that we're going to use here? When the lead comes in, how are we going to manage it? Is it going to go into a CRM system? Or is it going to go into someone's email box? Or is it going to text me the lead when it comes in? All these things have to be thought out beforehand, not, okay, now we got a theme, we got some colors, what are we going to do?
Well, exactly. Okay, so let's just stop right there because we need to jump back because this is Books in Hindsight. So a lot of people listening to this are going to be authors or aspiring authors, and websites are basically an afterthought. I published a book, and now I've got to build a website. So then you get into this whole thing of what the website world, which is a complete secret. You've got your own jargon, and it's a whole specialty. You've basically got a degree in to have a degree in to navigate. And it didn't used to be like that, but it's gotten so complicated now. So that's one thing, is that a lot of people listening to this are going to find this information very interesting. And then the other thing is just the idea that we're trying to put out the fact that there are people out there that will help you, and there are people out there that offer services to help you, and that's just one thing that a lot of people are in denial in about the internet. So I want to talk to you about going back to your book, Drew, about you talk about the how these companies are. I think you said it was a commodity. These web hosting is a commodity now. So what that means is that you have this big money that buys these hosting services. They put people in at minimum wage from various parts of the world, and they sit back and collect the profits. And so that's basically the reality of web hosting today. Is that correct?
For a lot of hosts. I mean, there are some hosts out there that actually do. There's a higher level of hosting out there that is there. The base level of the hosting itself, because of Moore's law and everything sort of getting better, doubling in speed and time because of that. But the base level of hosting continues to get cheaper in terms of cost. And your original iPod had very little storage on it, but now it has 10 times, 100 times the storage on it than the original version, and that's in the course of 12 years. So the same thing is happening with web hosting now, which costs $10 a month, now costs $2. So things have become more of a commodity.
Yeah, but they've also become more complicated, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But, and I'm just going to say right now, I started out with Weebly. right? Yes. And I don't know the history of WordPress. I haven't been keeping up on things. But I stepped into like this dark world that I didn't know. I went from Weebly, which was very easy, and now I'm sure that WordPress is a really nice system, and if I ever live long enough to master it, it's going to be great. But right now, I'm in trouble. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But what is the buyer's guide? Is that it's not like a legal document? I mean, you don't like talk about laws and all that. What exactly can I get out of the buyer's guide?
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of this book are the last 4 pages, in which are all the questions to ask before you engage. So these are the questions that you ask the digital agency. So that would be whether you're hiring a Weebly, a GoDaddy, a Squarespace, even a freelancer, or even a larger agency that's out there. If you hire like one of the big Madison Avenue people, the book has the questions that actually put you on the same grounds with them, so that you're actually asking intelligent questions. So that when you go in there, you can say, okay, are you going to be doing all the work yourself, or are you going to subcontract it? And the little things that you might not know to ask, like, and one of my favorite questions out of the book is also, what happens when we break up? So, but and no one likes to talk about that. No one likes to talk about divorce up front, but professionals talk about what happens when things go wrong, because things have gone wrong to them before. So in the evolution of every relationship, it ends. Marriages, friendships. At some point, someone either finds a new friend, gets divorced, there's a breaking point. This happens with websites too. You can outgrow your Weebly website. So what happens at that point? If you're doing so fantastic with your Weebly site, you said, I don't fit into this site anymore. I need something bigger, better, more impressive. Who owns the website? Can I port it to another person? Are you going to hold me hostage? Is this a software as a service where I have to continue to pay you every month? And if I stop paying you every month, do I lose my copy? Are the photos that are used on the website, who do those belong to? And so to talk about that up front is very professional. And when you find that the answers are coming back in a way that gives you, the hair on the back of your neck rises a little bit, like, I don't own any of this. And if you're someone who doesn't lease cars, if you don't rent property, you've always had to own it yourself, if that's sort of your ethos, and now someone's saying, well, you're kind of renting and leasing the website from us, and when you stop paying us our $20 a month, it shuts down and you don't own anything that's there. And you're thinking, oh, I own this website, but it's what's called a SaaS or software as a service product, like a Weebly or a Squarespace or a Wix, and you stop paying them the monthly fee, you don't have any rights to their technology.
So, okay, so they have, I'd never even thought of that. So they just keep all your pictures and your information and everything. They can keep that. I thought it just would go away. Why would they even want that? So anyway, but they're going to hang on to that.
Well, so you wouldn't have rights to regain it after you stop paying it. So they could say, okay, well, you've stopped paying us, we can delete it off of our server. And then all the time that you did to do photo galleries or you put up video on their site, all those things go away once you stop paying that subscription.
Okay, well, I was in my recent experience that we'll be talking about soon enough. We should just talk about it now, but I did notice that there was a form that you can file with ICANN if you cannot get your domain transferred to a new host. So and that was a pretty detailed form. So it looks like that could be a problem. And it seemed like the main reason for them not wanting to transfer it was monetary. So if you owe your other website money in the divorce, they're going to try to hang on to your stuff. So they can hang on to your domain then, or they can try to.
They can try to. So when you're building websites, think of the different parts of the website itself. And we get kind of clumsy in our English language of just referring to the website or our web page or something like that. But there are different parts to it. So you've got your domain name. That's part one. You have the web hosting piece that we sort of talked about earlier. And then you have the files or the website itself, the WordPress or the Joomla or the Wix that's actually sitting on the web hosting. And then you take your domain name and point it to the website. So there's those three parts to it. So ICANN is the internet body that regulates all the domain names. So from a English language standpoint, when you say, oh, I bought a domain, you really didn't buy the domain. ICANN is licensing you the use of that domain. And you have it for the year or the 2 or the 10 years that you registered that domain. But truly, you haven't bought it. You know, if you buy a book or a phone, it's yours. You can take it with you wherever you want to go. With the domain name at the end of its essentially subscription, it goes back to ICANN, and another registrar can sell it or essentially give a license to it for that time period. But you, as just a general business practice, if you've got to take your regulation matter to the governing international body, which that is what the I in ICANN stand for, you're essentially fighting Dubai again.
Really?
It's a rough one. So it's best if you can settle the matter between you and the registrar, and hopefully that's an easier battle than taking it to ICANN, because that ICANN does not want to get involved in your past due balance at Wix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's funny that all those things are in Dubai, where I lived in Oman for years, and the judges are all related to the sheikhs and the emirs and everything. So your chances of coming out with a favorable outcome are pretty slim. And I shouldn't, that's very broad generalization, but if you're going to go all the way over to that part of the world, they just see you as basically a foreigner, and they're probably going to try to protect their own local interests. So that's just the way of the world. Well, okay, so that's very interesting. So let's talk about. You say you had 4 questions, and my response to your 4 questions, based on my experience, is if you have some salesperson who just makes a commission off of you, or a technician, whatever, who wants to get you out of the way as fast as possible. If they don't tell you the truth, it doesn't. How do you enforce these things that you're talking about? These 4 questions.
Oh, there are more than 4 questions. There are 4 pages of questions.
Oh, 4 pages. Okay.
There's many more questions in here to ask.
So, but you said you had 4 questions to ask your web host. Is that correct? Some before you go into that relationship.
There are 10 questions here.
Okay, then I must be off in another world or something. So okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So, the intention of it is to build a relationship out of this, and as you're going through these questions, like, for example, do you carry insurance to cover the loss of income due to data or programming issues as a result of something that you've done? It's a great question to ask. And if it doesn't feel right, if the question feels, the answer comes back kind of salesy, and I use those as a red flag, at least a pink flag, where you're like, I'm not feeling so good. And as you stack up these questions, you may say, okay, this isn't the right vendor for me. And that's the intention of these questions, is to say, okay, when I called into your tech support line, it took 45 minutes for me to get an answer. And all of your systems are up right now. What happens when the systems are not up?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the delay for customer service when things are bad? Because when things are good, it takes you 45 minutes to answer the phone. And then you kind of also have to bake into that your own time and quality of life. So, well, the hosting may be a really good option at $2 a month. You may bill at $100 an hour for your own time. So that's $45 for each time you call in for a tech support question just to get started.
Mm-hmm.
So that hosting isn't just costing you $2.
Yeah.
It's costing you $47 once you add in your own time. And also, some web hosts don't have phone support. So if you're someone that likes to communicate verbally and don't want to be on a chat window, that may not be a match for you. Or if you don't feel like filing tickets through support dot whatever and working and waiting for someone to email you back, if that's not a match for you, not that, these are the ways that you can ask these questions up front so it's a fit for you and how you operate.
Okay, but do you remember, I think it was Reagan said trust but verify. How do we verify what these people are telling us? Because you can say, oh yeah, that guy in India told me that I would have, so much uptime, but where's he at now? So how do you document, or should I document, or what should I do about that?
What time do you wake up in the morning?
Like me, I guess 6 o'clock.
Call their support. Call their tech support the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. If someone answers the phone and phone is important to you, see if it's 45 minutes at that time.
Oh.
If no one answers, that is how it's going to be when things go bad.
Yeah, and then there's also they answer no problem, but then then they put you on hold while they research the thing, and it always ends up, what we're going to talk about is it always ends up being 45 minutes per call, and it's hit and miss whether or not the problem is solved. But anyway, so what is can we get into it now? Well, no, we're gonna hold off for just a couple more minutes. So let me ask you, Drew, I want to ask you about some of your publishing choices. Did we publish ourselves, or did we have this traditionally published?
So I did self-publish the book.
Right. And don't say it like you should be ashamed, because that is the way to go now. You make much more money that way. You sound shy about it.
Well, it is my first and probably only book. The naivete that I came to when I wrote this book was massively was massive. It was pretty terrible. I thought the book would take me 90 days to write. It took a year and 6 months to write it. As soon as I had it finished, I sent it off to all the big publishing houses, as in, like, surely you'll want to put this next to
exactly
J.K. Rowning's book.
Yeah.
Surely this is and it wasn't necessarily ego; it was just naivete. I didn't understand the process, and so I received what was just a stream of rejection letters coming back, and some of them just weren't nice. They were just like, "You're wasting our time."
Really? I mean, okay, can I stop you there? Based on your experience, the fact that you own your own company, and well, I guess you're a complete expert. You worked for CNN, all of that, and it didn't impress him enough, did it?
I didn't. One of the letters that came back to me was actually really informative. It said, "You really don't have enough Twitter followers you didn't come baked in with your own audience." And that was really enlightening me. I said, "No, I actually don't have. I might have the customer list and our email list at our company is thousands and thousands, but I didn't come baked in with my own audience. And as a result of that, I was like, oh, that one actually came home to me. And I was like, that makes sense that I didn't come baked in with my own audience.
Yeah, you're just not popular enough for them, I guess.
I wasn't popular. I didn't have enough Instagram.
How crazy that is. Okay.
Yeah. But it's always nice when someone kind of shares, how the recipe is made at the publishing houses. And hired an outfit called Girl Friday to help produce the book and get it published. And they were really helpful. Sent it through multiple iterations of edits, even though I have an English degree, even though I think that I can put together a few words on paper. I learned that after having 4 different copy editors review the book, there was so much further that we could have taken the book, and so that was really helpful with what they did for us.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, tell me about your Audible book. What was the? Well, no. Let's go back. I can't just jump into the Audible book yet. I need to know. Okay. So you, how long did it take once you decided to do the self-publishing? Did you do all the formatting, and please tell me the name of that company again?
Girl Friday Productions.
Girl Friday. I'm gonna put that on the on my link in my YouTube video. So did they do the formatting and the cover design and all that stuff?
They did everything for me.
Okay, reasonably priced.
I think so. I think there was it's sort of based upon how many words your book is and what you need. They also do websites. I didn't need that help, but they also do websites. And there was they put together a timeline. They stuck to the timeline, even when I didn't, which is, as someone who runs a production house, I can really appreciate that, and they did a fine job with that. And we got the website, not the website, but the book done on time and on schedule. And for someone who writes a book about process on building and developing websites, they did a great job with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic. Okay, so and it is a great looking book, and it's also very well written, and it's pretty easy to read. So and just let me throw this back out there. It is drewbarton.com, and the book is The Buyer's Guide to Websites. It's available on Amazon. I think it was $12 or something for the print. And is that also in Kindle?
It is in Kindle. They also did the ebook version.
Okay, so let's go to the audio book. Is that your voice on audio? Because that sounds familiar.
It is.
All right, so you did that yourself.
Yes.
Okay, well, tell us about that.
I hired a sound production company here in Atlanta to help me with that, and I hired a company called Spotlight Studio. I sat in their sound booth and read the book, and probably in hindsight, I would have hired someone else to do it.
All right, yeah, I bet. Well, you sound good, and I appreciate you throwing in that plug for Books in Heinessight right there. Yeah. So, all right, okay. So, how can I ask you I would think your sales would be phenomenal. How's that going? And if not, they're not yet. I'm sure after the podcast is out, they'll go into the millions. But how are things right now?
Things are good. I'm actually reminded of one of the interesting things about reading the book, doing the audio version myself, is that once, if you do choose to do your own book in your own audio version, especially if you've sent it through 4 or 5 rounds of copy edits, those words that are on the page do not follow the same cadence as the original version that you wrote. We do not speak grammatically correct. And once it goes through copy edit, it is grammatically correct. So it would actually take me multiple tries to read the book because this is the story of my everyday being in business. And I know the stories that are in here, and I know the way that I would tell them narratively to you or I on this podcast, but it's not the way that it's grammatically written. So it actually took me probably twice as long in the sound booth to read this book, because I would laugh because the guy in the sound booth would say, that's actually not the words that are written on the page. And I would laugh because it was the story that I was telling, but I'd have to go back, and it took twice as long. So if you do have your own book and are not hiring a professional reader to do the book,
yeah, you sit there going, what? Oh, that's okay. I messed that up. So, wow. So you say it took 3 times as long as you thought it would?
Probably, yeah. What I found was interesting was my studio time followed a baseball player named Chipper Jones, who also plays baseball here in Atlanta, or did. And
I think so. I think a few people know who Chipper Jones is.
So he had studio time before me, but he only read the preface, the intro to his book, and had a professional reader come in after him. So I believe that he did it the correct way of just read the personal part and then have a professional come in afterwards. I would have done it. That makes sense to me at this point, because it would have gone a whole lot faster having a professional reader.
Yeah, that is good advice. And did you submit to, you submitted to Amazon? Is it through ACX?
Yes.
Okay, because I was talking to New Shelves Books, and they were telling me about another recording program that they're not as, ACX is pretty, they're sticklers about all of their standards and all that, but these other guys, they seem to be a little bit more slack, but they let you suffer the consequences if, your quality isn't that high. So anyway, yeah, I'd like to, but that's the thing for now, is that most people, really authors especially, need to do audiobooks, because people are stuck in traffic and nobody has time to read anymore. The internet made us all slaves. So, okay, well, that's great. All right, well, let's see. I think we have time now to go into our real life scenario, and I'm not going to spend all day dwelling on it, because before we go, Drew, I need to ask you, I'd like to know about the size of your company, and we'll just stay with that for the second. But okay, so I am that nameless victim. I'm out there, and I'm the herd. I'm in the mob. And the first thing is, my website is down, and it seems to be down all the time. What are the steps I'm supposed to take? I won't tell you the steps I did take, but what should I do?
So the first thing is, you want to figure out the why. Let's be Simon Sinek for a second and start with why. Like, why is the site down? And there are 3 places you can point to. And remember, we talked about, so the first reason is your website down because the domain name is lapsed? Is the website down because the web host is having an issue? Or is the website down because the website files itself are corrupted or out of whack, broken, essentially?
Okay, well, can I stop you there? Because I want to hear, I didn't know that was actually possible, but that was one of the reasons they told me. So I would go to my website and it would not be down. There would be another website. Like, my name is Heinessight, my website is. So it would be like an optometrist or, something like that. And it was just a weird general website, but they would say, somebody removed your files. Well, who removed my files? Because I don't even know I had files, and how would I remove them? So do you know what would be going on there?
So it's one of those 3, right? So it's either I'm just issue spotting without knowing what's going on. So either the domain is pointed at an incorrect web host. That's one option. Someone moved that. 2, the web host is misconfigured and they're pointing it to a different site that's on the server with the configuration on the server. Or the third one is 1 and 2, domain and web host are fine, but your files have been overwritten by someone else that might have had access to it, which might have been someone at the web hosting company. It might have been a developer who you might not be working with anymore. Or you could be hacked.
Okay, well, then that leads to another question that I hadn't even thought of. So with all of these different developers that you're working with, because like I was through one hosting company, but doing things through Weebly, and then I can't think of it offhand right now, but you've got all these different plugins or whatever. And so all these different people apparently have access to your files as well?
Sure, absolutely. So Weebly is a SaaS product, or software as a service. So that means that the website and hosting component are tied together on that case. So whenever you give someone your username and password, or you give them a username and password to access that, until you remove that access, you've granted them license to your stuff. So if you do decide to part ways with a web developer, your immediate action is to lock the door behind them to safeguard yourself. If you were to fire a housekeeper, you would probably ask for your key back or change the lock. It's the same. You're hiring someone to keep your house essentially online. So you want to change the locks when they leave. Change the password, delete their user, or remove their access.
Yeah, well, this is just a stupid question, and I don't even answer it, but it would seem like if you change your password, they still know it. Well, all right, I don't even answer that. That is a stupid question. Let's move on. Okay, so then we get to your site is down, and is it possible for somebody to, like, this is my experience. I was charged for sites that were created for domain names I didn't own. And then not only that, but they tacked on, I wasn't only charged for the domain, but all the services that went with the domain on an account that I didn't even have. And it didn't even show up in the in my thing. And when I asked the company, they said that that's not a problem. You won't be charged for those because they're not in your account. But then I was charged for them anyway, and my bank account was overdrawn like hundreds of dollars from this, and what is my recourse? I mean, they sent me a bill for things that I didn't owe money for, and then I said that I don't owe money. They said, well, you don't owe money, and we're not going to charge you, and then they do anyway. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, that's why it's important to have that SOW in place, that statement of work. I'm hiring you to host this domain, and I'm hiring you to build this website. And when those other things are happening, if you have essentially the receipts to say, it is this, and it's only this that you can charge me for. Mm-hmm. And I tell this story in the book because I hired, this has nothing to do with web building, but I hired a guy to remodel my bathroom. And in the process of remodeling the bathroom, I said, you know what, the sink is there, but I'd really like it over there instead. Just if you can move it over 3 feet. And he said, no problem, I'll move the sink. Not a problem. And when I got the bill, there was an extra $900 on my bill for moving the sink. Now, the problem is, I didn't create a new statement of work with him. I didn't say, yes, charge me, move the sink, $900, yes, no, do you approve this extra charge? No? Okay, the sink is going to stay where it's at. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, you approved it? Yes, I'll move the sink 3 feet. That didn't happen in that situation. And so that's why a statement of work is so important with whether you're moving a sink or you're building a website and you're like, oh, can you make my logo bigger? Can you move this down there? When you're asking these questions, a professional is going to say, okay, it's going to take me a little extra time to do that. I'm estimating that it's going to cost this to do it. Do you want to move forward with it? That's when you know you're dealing with a professional. And at times, there's some people that grimace and go, oh, you're nickel and diming me for everything that's happening. But the opposite of that is even worse. Getting sticker shock for a bill that you didn't expect is far worse than getting nickel and dimed. Because at least with nickel and dimed, and it's a terrible thing to say, but at least you know what those charges are going to be. There are two things that I write about in the book that break apart, every relationship. One is money, the other is communication. And that is the union of those two things is in the statement of work. So once you're getting what I consider a fraudulent invoice from someone, your relationship with that web host or that development company can almost never be put back to the way it was.
Exactly. And it's like, I don't know, being robbed or something. You go, and especially it was just like a continuing storm of one day, the next day. But what they did is what they told me is that somebody had opened up 2 accounts, and I'm just telling this so people, can be wiser and you can understand what's going on out there as well. But they opened up either 1 or 2 accounts and with these domains and all that. And they said, oh, these were not even yours. And so they admitted that. And then they also said that they had charged me for a mobile site. And now on this, on your account for this particular company, you can only have 1 mobile site, but they charged me for 2, and they never provided me either one. And it had worked for a while, but a few months ago I noticed, wow, where's my mobile site? And it was right after the time it was renewed, so it basically just dropped off. And you couldn't have 2, but they were charging me for 2, and they were providing me with nothing. And then my site was continually going down, and I really don't think it's because they're a bad company. I think it's because of what you talk about how it's just a commodity now, and they don't really care so much about the service because, I drop off and 5 other people are going to come along. And I also noticed that the biggest, and I won't say the name so we don't have any legal issues here, but I noticed the biggest company also is owned or associated with the company that I'm talking about. So when I was making my choice of companies, I thought, well, are you guys associated with them? And yes, we are. Well, I'm not gonna do it. And it's just because I think that they're just too big. So what do you think about that? What do you do when you come up against the immovable object of a huge corporation stuck in Dubai?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that you mentioned there that I want to pull out for a second is you said you had a mobile site and then you didn't have a mobile site. And I want to bring that to everyone's attention in here. If you're like me, you might be weird, but I set a calendar reminder every 30 days to replace the air filter in my furnace. It's just, otherwise it goes months. I forget all about it. If I don't set myself a to-do list item for it. For the things that are important in your business, whether that be the execution of orders on your website, the form completions for inquiries about speaking engagements or on-site consultations, set yourself reminders to test the functionality on your website. Because just because it works on a Monday doesn't mean it's going to work on a Tuesday. And because what you don't know is that we talked about the website piece, but the web host, every website host is running patches all the time too. So the functions that might be sending out email on Monday might get patched that evening and your emails will not go out. So you may think your website's operating fine, you pulled it up, it's still there. But unless you have a checklist of things that you're going to check once a month on the website to make sure that everything is still there and working, do a test order for a book. Try submitting the form once a month. Because just because you're seeing it there doesn't mean it's working. And all too often we're doing these visual glances instead of once a month, pull the hood up and see that it's still working. I cannot reiterate that enough to folks, because we see the form on the website. We surely think it's working. But when you submit a form, especially when it's by email, think about what happens to that. It's leaving the web server where that form is submitted. And think about all the different hops that go through that and how many times those spam filters are updated. So it's entirely possible at one point, one of those hops, your email could be stuck. And you could be losing a lot of business because the form's not working. And think about the times when you've had people say, oh, I reached out to you on your website and you didn't get it. Like, this could have been that $1 million account that didn't come through. A good fail-safe to help. And it's not going to protect you every time, but just set once a month. On the 15th of the month, I'm going to test out the e-commerce functions. I'm going to order something on my own website, because we just assume that it's working.
That is great advice. And yeah, everybody should write that down. And to be honest with you, I've always thought of doing that, but I just thought towards the end there I was going, no, because I'll just get angry because it won't be online, and then I've got to get on the phone to those people. But that is exactly what you have to do. And so, yep, but your website is your life, especially now if you're an author and an independent business person. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Drew, I think we're on just about an hour. I wanted one more question for you, if you don't mind. I want you to, I know I probably asked you the same question at the beginning, but I want you to talk about Southern Web and how big is your company? I think you said you had 10 employees and you're in Atlanta, right?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us who do you serve? How would I contact you, or under what conditions should I contact you?
Sure. So my company is Southern Web. We have 12 employees. Some are here in Atlanta. Some are distributed and work virtually. And our website is southernweb.com. Our WordPress work company is wpsitecare.com. And there's inquiry forms on there. But we also have phone numbers on all those websites as well, to help people. Because really, it's very hard to build a relationship with the company through a form or an email address. And with our clients, we really aim to have a relationship so we understand what your goals are with the website. And every website has a different goal. One could be selling books. It could be just a point of presence website to say who you are and what you do. And for others, it is to generate 50 leads an hour. There's different goals of each website. So, but yeah, you can find us at those places. We also have the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, all those things as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at Drew Barton. Okay.
So I just wanted to. So you basically, I'm trying to summarize here. So if I'm a business person, whatever, I want to sell something, and I need to be on the internet, you guys will basically hold my hand and help me out to get started. That's correct, right?
It's a white glove service. So all those points we talked about, whether it's the domain, the website, the web hosting, when our clients come to us, they really want us to say, Drew, you've done this before. You are expert in it. I know what my goals are, and I just want you to walk me through this process and help me achieve those things. You're not going to pay the $12 that you're going to pay with some of the other guys, but you'll pay a little bit more. But there should be no yelling, no screaming, and no 45-minute waits on hold. So that's the upshot to it.
Okay, so that's great. So one more time, you provide web hosting services.
Yes, web development, web hosting, WordPress support and maintenance, digital marketing, including SEO or search engine optimization, and also paid advertising as well.
Okay. Well, all right, Drew. Well, I have to also confess before you go that this morning I was at the end of my rope. I could not figure out. I'm trying to do WordPress in my new on my new web host, and I was just at a loss, and I told Drew I don't think I can even do this interview today. I haven't slept, and I'm just really stressed out about this website thing. And he put me in touch with Ryan over at his, I can't remember the initials on that, but his subsidiary company. And Ryan was basically able to get my site up and running. And so now after I get everything else done, I'm going to go back and take another whack at it. Well, Drew Barton, it is an honor. It is a pleasure to have you on Books in Heinessight. And just so you know, and everybody that you know knows, you can watch this on YouTube at Books in Heinessight, and this will be on iTunes and Google Play and iHeartRadio and all of the usual venues. So if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button wherever you see it. And check Drew out at drewbarton.com, and the book is The Buyer's Guide to Websites, and Drew is at Southern Web. All right, Drew, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You have a great afternoon down there in Atlanta.
Will do. Thanks, Matthew.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been Books in Heinessight with your host, Matthew Heines. Please join us for our next podcast and look for our archives on iTunes and go to theheinessight.com. That's HEINES site.com for great books by Matthew Heines and other great authors.